Therwan Sarnai. How are you all doing this morning? Excellent. Lots of lovely smiles. Don't worry, I'll fix all that. So once in a while, I bring someone along to embarrass you a little bit. And to inspire you a little bit more. You must not forget that time always works against you. In the grand scheme of things, you must not be fooled to think that as long as others are working hard towards their salvation, the same will happen for me. If that were true, then when you're hungry, someone else could eat, and your hunger would be sated. When you're thirsty, someone else could drink, and your thirst would be quenched. You know it doesn't work like that. You and I, we are all in the same boat, ladies and gentlemen. Each and every one of us. That is what qualifies me to come and speak to you like this. Because I understand what you're going through. We all want the same thing. We are all hoping to achieve the same objective. It is no different for any of us. All these differences that we see amongst us are mere superficial differences. Underneath, cut us and we bleed the same, don't we? In the same way, if you were to set aside all these other layers of your identity, set aside the fact that you are a mother, a father, a businessman, a government servant, a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. Set aside all those superficial adornments. Underneath, you're just a mind, aren't you? See, in that way, we are all the same. What is here is what is there. We're all just minds. And a mind wants just one thing. A mind just wants to be free of suffering. And that is why people seek refuge in religion. What else does religion have to offer? That is why people seek refuge in religion. That is why people seek refuge in a Savior, in an Almighty God, in a religious leader, in a faith. It's because people want to be free, people want to be happy and free of suffering. So all these things that people do day in, day out, if it doesn't add up to that ultimate objective that we all share, then something's wrong somewhere. So that is why from time to time I bring along young men, and on occasions I have brought young women, who started off in life just the same as anyone among you. And they all went looking for the same thing. But somewhere down that path, they discovered that true happiness was not in any of those material or worldly pursuits. None of you are to blame for being where you are today And I say that very genuinely because it is what we were influenced by society to do. It is what we've always learned to do. It is what our parents, our elders, our siblings, our teachers, it is what they taught us to do. It is what we learned reading the magazines and browsing the internet. We are a product of our environment and what we have learned from the people that we associated with. However, no matter what people who come into our lives teach us before they leave, before they depart, ultimately the consequences have to be endured by ourselves. The rewards of your good deed are yours to enjoy, and the consequences of your bad decisions are also yours to suffer. Isn't that right? That's the thing. So after all is said and done, we are all alone, just as individuals. You were born alone and you die alone. During our life, we feel that there are so many people around you, many around us, and people who will keep us happy, people who will give us what we want, people who will teach us how to enjoy ourselves, people with whom we will party, go to school together, go to work together, get married to, have children, and live a family life. But in the end, when the sentence comes to an end, it ends on a full stop. That full stop is a single full stop, one. Although many characters can go into making the sentence, the full stop is only one. So when you stop, there's no one there to hold your hand and ensure that the life after this is going to be a jolly good life. That is down to each and every one of us to be responsible for and to do what we have to do for ourselves. So when you listen to these stories, when you listen to these individuals, these monks, these anagarikas, I need you to look within those stories and see if you can spot yourself. That is the whole purpose of it. This is not just a show. It's done with purpose. In a moment, the Swami Nahaze will ascend to the stage and he will share with you a little bit of what happened to him. Many of you will be curious. Many of you will be surprised. Many of you will be hopefully inspired. Inspired to ask yourself, where am I in this story? Somewhere along the story you will find yourself, that's where I am. And then, as he brings his story to an end, I want you to ask yourself, where is your story going to end? You know, they say that we are always working to a plan. This is one of those things I always talk about when we talk about time management, life management, work management. We are always working to a plan. People think that we don't always have a plan. Sometimes when we start doing one of these talks, I remember when I used to be in my lay life and give lectures on time management and things like that, I'd ask people, those who have a plan to which they work, please put your hand up. And almost 1/3 of the room tend to put their hand up. The other 2/3 say, no, we don't have a plan. I say, you're wrong. You do have a plan. It's just not your plan, that's all. Whenever you're not working to a plan, you're working to someone else's plan. So you're all working to a plan. If you don't have your own plan, you're working to Steve Jobs' plan. Or you're working to Mark Zuckerberg's plan. Yes or no? Yes. He decides how you spend your time. That's because you don't have a plan. But regardless of whose plan you live, in the end, you come to that full stop. When you put that full stop on the book of your life, After you've written all those chapters, as you come to the last chapter that says the end, and you put that full stop, you mustn't forget that all those people who made all those plans for you, whose plans you lived out, well, they're not going to be there when you put that last full stop. That you're going to have to put on your own. It's what happened to your father, it's what happened to your mother, it's what happened to your grandfather, your grandmother, and many who have come and gone before you. So I want you today to listen to this story. In that story, see whether you can spot yourself. And then ask yourself, is that where I want to be? Because it'll be quite an interesting story, I'm sure. Somewhere you will spot yourself. And then as the story continues, as the story unfolds, I want you to ask yourself, okay, so if that's where I am now, where do I see myself in the future? And then as you'll continue listening to that story, it'll take a twist at some point. The plot will change. There'll be a juncture in that story where the plot completely changes. You go like this somewhere and completely come back again. So that point where it changes, if your story is still charted all along that path, to continue on that path, I need you to ask yourself why that is. Remember, at the end of the day, we're all just minds. You are not the person that you think you are. You're not a company director. You're not an artist. You're not a teacher. You're not even a mother or a father. You're just a mind. All those other things are just baggages that you carry on your back, because all those baggages you will leave on the day you depart. Can I ask you a question? Who were you in your last life? In your previous life, who were you? Were you a teacher? You don't know, do you? What if you were? Well, you don't know now. What does that mean? Even if you were, what had you done to that baggage? You left it at the departure lounge. Because they don't allow any carry-on luggage from there on. You have to travel just as you arrived. Naked. Bare. With only the karma that you had done. Either good or bad. That's all you can take with you. For those of you who are married, you weren't always married, were you? To your spouse? Of course not. Go back in time. When you first met him or her, initially it might have just been a crush. You like what you saw. Then you liked what you heard. She said the right things. He said the right things. Why did you not stop there? She was still saying the right things. You liked her. You liked him. Maybe you started dating after that. With or without parental consent. Somehow it started to grow in your heart. That affection started to grow into love. If you remember, you probably held hands, walked down the path, maybe went to the parks, went to the beach, went to a restaurant. So why did you not stop there? So there were various points that you crossed. Initially it was just a crush. That developed into an affair. My question is, why did it not stop there? At some point you decided, right, I want this to be full-time. You liked it so much, that association. You liked the experience, that the fun, the joy that it brought you, that relationship brought you, and you wanted it to be full-time. You liked it full-time. You liked it so much that you wanted her or him to be with you 24/7. That's what Paramanandana was talking about. See, when you like something so much, you want it to be with you all the time, not just on a Sunday morning, not just on the weekends, not just 2 or 3 times a day. You want it around the clock, all the time, every time. And that's why you decided to get married. See, that you've done in other areas of life. So what Paramanandana just suggested to you, what we continue to talk to you about, is nothing new to you. You've done this in other areas of life. When you want something really bad, you want to have it around the clock, all the time, every day, throughout the year. Well then, why are you not when it comes to the sasana? Perhaps it's because you have not seen how good it is. Those who have seen how good this is, they actually give up their married life. And in most cases, both man and wife, they pick this path, as has happened since the time of the Buddha. They pick this path, and actually they then commit their entire life to the sasana. You get married to the sasana. So you understand the analogy. When you want something, and you want something really bad, and you want it a lot, and you really like what you have, or you like what you get, you want it all the time, well then, for you to come to that point, you must be able to experience and understand what the sasana has to offer to you. So it's not something that we expect you to do, just like that. It is something that is to happen to you once you begin to understand what the sasana is about. Once again, I know, if you again go back to the same analogy, there are times where maybe there's a girl that you like. You really want to be with her. You want to get married to her, but unfortunately, you just cannot have it that way. Either because her parents don't approve of it, your parents don't approve of it, or she's already taken. Some reason or the other. In such instances, you just have to make your mind up and say, well, in any other circumstance I would have, maybe in another life. So you convince yourself, maybe in my next life. Maybe you hold hands and you say, if only we had met 2 years ago. If only we had met 5 years ago, things would have been different. Things could have been different. And then you may both make a resolve, in our next life, let us meet in this same place, in this very place, but without all these other commitments. And things could be different. As I relate this to you, you're probably thinking of someone already. Wow. This is Sunday morning. Thankfully, no one can read your thoughts, eh? But, if that is the same for you when it comes to the sasana, yes, there may be those who have already committed themselves to other things, other obligations, duties, responsibilities, or maybe now you've gone past that age, that point in life where you can make those decisions. The same as with marriage. Sometimes, there are people you meet towards the later part of your life and you think, wow, if we'd met earlier, things would have been different. But now, it's past that point. So then it simply has to stop at an affection. It cannot develop into anything else. So the same analogy applies here. There may be for some of you who it's not possible, but for those who can, the invitation is always there. The sasana is forever ready and prepared to accept you. The sasana is what you do in your mind. If there are those among you who are still young and youthful and they have your good life on your side, life that must be invested wisely, ladies and gentlemen, because you worked really hard to earn this opportunity. We must not forget that we were all born for one thing, and that is to be happy. That is what I said right at the start. What you listened to was a story of a man and his wife, and they went to Australia because the wife wanted to become a doctor. So she went and she fulfilled her path. And then her sister joined her as well. The Swaminatha didn't mention that part of the story. Her sister joined her as well. And she also went on to complete her PhD. And they're both Anagarikas now at our monastery. That is the miracle of the Dhamma. The really well-to-do families, they weren't lacking in anything. Whether it's wealth, property, youth on their side, come from very loving families. One of the toughest things we had to do was to get consent from the parents, because such a loving family. Until the parents begin to listen to the Dhamma and understand, it's very difficult for a parent to say, okay, to let go of, children who they dote on. And the same was true in this family, both families, both the Swaminatha and his lay wife. Both families were really loving families. But little did they know that once the children come into the sasana, they will benefit tremendously, as they have begun to understand now. Until then they thought, well, we are going to give up our children, the children that were always there for us, the children who loved us. I'm going to lose my son, I'm going to lose my daughter, was what they thought. Little did they realize that was the complete opposite of that was going to happen. They haven't lost one son, they have gained 150. Each and every one of us feels that any of our monks' fathers or mothers are our own. And if I can speak with you in this manner, and I care about you in this manner, just imagine if a parent of one of our monks or anagarikas were to come up to us with a problem, some kind of issue. I would not leave any stone unturned. No holds barred. We would go all the way, as if it was my own mother, my own father. It makes no difference. We are all one family. The family of the sasana, wound together by the Dhamma. So that protection of this Mahasangha is what is available to the extent to which you are prepared to take it. But I know it's not a simple decision to make. There are lots of hurdles that one might have to jump. Some hurdles may be too tall now, difficult to jump over them. Some hurdles are too far away. It's going to take the rest of your life to get to them before you even consider jumping. But again, there are those here, because I have to consider that there are always two groups in this audience. There are those who can but don't yet, maybe yet. And then there are those who are not able to. But because there are both groups in this audience, I speak to both of you. So there are those who have everything going for them. It's not too late for them. They still can experience this with their whole life and give your whole life to happiness. That is what the sasana is, happiness. Sasana in one word is happiness. Then there are those who cannot commit their entire life to it because maybe they have children, they have their spouses, they have debts they have to pay, or some other commitments they have made. And in that case, well, there's still a way to do this, and that is to practice the sasana while you're still in your household lives. So I speak to both of these groups. If you're in the latter, there's not a lot you can change about your circumstances, and I appreciate that. But if you're in the former, if you don't take an action now, you will fall into the latter very soon. I'm sure there are many in this audience, if I were to ask them, had you had this Dhamma 5 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, would you still be where you are today? And the answer would be a categorical no, Swami Mahansa. If we had had the Dhamma 10 years ago, my life would have been very different. Lots of nods from the audience. And I believe they are very genuine nods, because now, you understand what the whole point of this is. I haven't just related a Jataka story to you and asked you, would you like to become a monk? We've been talking the truth, and you are beginning to realize. If you recall the sermon from last week, towards the end I explained to you, why is it called Nibbāna? It's to decouple reality and your fantasy. When these two things collide, that's when you have problems in your mind. That decoupling is Nibbāna. So if you had had this Dhamma back 10 years ago, your life would have been very different. Perhaps the two of you, maybe you have come here today as husband and wife, would both be in the sasana. Because for some reason, you both have the merits to listen to the Dhamma, see? You can't listen to the Dhamma through your wife's merits or your husband's merits. Your merits are your own. So if you're here as a husband and wife, then that's because you each individually have merits to listen to the Dhamma. Meaning, if the two of you probably had not met 10 years ago, perhaps you would have been in the sasana, but as individuals. But then somewhere, you also had the merits to be with her. I don't know, merits or whatever. Let's say it's just merits. You had the merits to be with her or with him. And so that had to happen the way it did. And so now, as a pair of you, like a train, now you have to go everywhere together. But then when you put that full stop, remember you cannot put the full stops together. It's always done individually, separately. So there are both groups in this audience, and that's perfectly fine with me. My task is to give you the Dhamma, teach you the Dhamma, and help you understand the consequences of your actions, the rewards of your good deeds, and to guide you on the path that has taken many to the ultimate bliss of Nibbāna. I need you to get this message right into your hearts, ladies and gentlemen, deep down where you contemplate, deep down where it hurts if it must, deep down where you begin to realize that this is what is happening to you. That's why I often say, forget all this sense of identity that you have, all these superficial layers that you have added onto you. When you come here on a Sunday morning, just forget the fact that you are a mother or a father. Put all that to a side. Because you being a mother or a father has no connection to what's going to happen to you when this is all done, said and done. You being a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer has no relation to what's going to happen to you when it's all is said and done. You are alone in this. That much I really need you to understand. You are dead alone in this. When you dig up in the cemetery, if ever people dig up a grave, how many dead bodies do you find in there? In a grave? One coffin takes how many? One, right? That's because we die alone. One coffin takes one. Even if you are born as twins, or as triplets, or as quadruplets, even if you are born that way, when you die, you are in one coffin, one grave per person. So in that way, when your story comes to an end, it is your own story that will come to an end. Let's not forget that you are only minds. So I'll be sharing with you the Dhamma to help convince that point to you. Let me talk to you about this today. The reason that you are still longing for this journey in samsara, because you have kama tanha, bhava tanha and vibhava tanha, the three kinds of attachment that keep you bound to samsara. You have emotions that you enjoy. Sensuality is one of them. Sensuality does not necessarily equate to sexuality. It is just one of the many ways in which sensuality can be experienced. But when you see something and you enjoy what you see, we call it beauty of sight. You need to understand, folks, that that sense of beauty is actually created in your own mind. It is not something that an external object can ever offer you. Until and unless you understand this, you will keep going after, looking for, searching for things in the outside world and looking to acquire them as much as you can. Now, as I say this out loud, I want you to think about real examples in your own life. Think of something that you find attractive, something or someone, whatever you like. Think of someone or something that you find attractive. When you say that you find this person or this thing attractive, immediately your mind tells you that that attractiveness is in the person, or it's in the object. Look at this flower arrangement, for instance. See, this looks attractive, don't you think? That's why you laid it out like this. There's the pink flowers and the white interspersed. This arrangement looks attractive. When you see this, that attractiveness, your mind tells you that it's actually here. So much so that if I were to rearrange this and put all the red flowers on the one side and the white flowers on the other side, you might say, actually, Swaminathan is not as attractive now. It was more attractive the way it was before. Or if I were to take out all the red flowers and put it out here and just leave the white flowers here, you'd say, Swaminathan, could you put those flowers back in there? Because it was that variety that made it attractive. If you leave the dhamma to a side for a moment, isn't your mind convinced that that attractiveness, that beauty is actually out here? So much so that you might even be willing to pay for this. You'd be happy to depart with your money that you have worked hard for to buy this attractiveness. It's not the flower that you want. What are you going to do with flowers? You've bought flowers in the past. Yeah, many of us have. We've bought flowers. Why do you buy flowers? Do you eat them? What do you buy flowers for? One word, because they're beautiful. They're pretty. So you buy flowers expecting beauty, prettiness to be in the flowers. That's the problem. It's not a simple thing. It's actually a grave problem. It's a very serious problem. And that's why you need eyes all the time. Eyes to always pick up what's on the outside and give you messages about what's happening in the outside world because you think beauty is in the outside world. You see, folks, until you think along these lines, you can never free yourself from the sensual world. You will keep on coming back here. You will keep on being born either as human beings or as animals. There's no escape. Because you have to be born as a human or an animal in this human plane so that you have eyes to see, a nose to smell, a tongue to taste, and a body to feel. Did you know that your mind does not need any of these? These are very different things. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind. These things are not connected. The mind can survive on its own without these other 5 things. But today, your mind will not believe that. It will not accept that. So much so that your mind believes that I am here so that I can see, so that I can look at things. I can enjoy sights. That's what your mind tells you right now. That's why you take your mind and carry it on your legs, on your 2 legs, and take it places so that it can go and see things. Doesn't your mind tell you that it needs to see things? Are you not convinced that your mind has to see things? How long can you keep your eyes shut? How long? If I were to give you a challenge, can I give you a challenge? Keep your eyes shut from now till the end of the sermon. No falling asleep though. You wouldn't like it. Why do you have a TV at home? Just to catch up on what's going on out there? Well, you could do that with a newspaper. It's not just because you want to watch the news. It's because you want to please your what? Not your eyes. Please your mind. You want to please your mind. In other words, your mind thinks that it needs eyes to be happy. Does it not? Doesn't the thought of going blind scare you? What do you say? Just say someone gives you a piece of news. Let's say you've had some flowers at home, right? You grow some flowers in your garden. One of these days you read on the newspaper that there are these types of flowers that if you have in your garden, right, then it spreads some pollen into the air and it makes you blind after you've been exposed to it for some time. Okay? So then you realize that these are the flowers that you've been growing in your garden. How do you feel at that moment when you realize that apparently scientists have done their research and they have found that if you have those flowers in your garden, then you go blind. Once you're exposed to it a lot. What do you do after that? Do you leave the flowers there? No, of course not. You'll burn them if you can. And you won't not only take it out of your own garden, but you'll walk down the street, right, down the road and see if any of your neighbors have those flowers as well. Not because you love them, but just in case the pollen gets into the air and the wind blows it into your own garden, right? You'll walk up and down your neighborhood and make sure that your neighbors have destroyed all those flowers as well. See, the thought of going blind scares you, doesn't it? What gets scared? Very good, the mind gets scared. Does the eye get scared? No. So, why does going blind scare the mind? Why does losing the ability to see with your eyes scare the mind? Exactly, because the mind believes that it has to be able to see to be happy. Now then, by extension of that, if the mind believes that it has to be able to see to be happy, the mind will always need eyes. That's why you can never be born without them. That's why every time the mind passes away in this existence of yours, when the mind's born again, it will always be born looking for a pair of eyes. And if it has to have a pair of eyes, it has to be born in a physical body, such as yours. Now, eyes cannot just hang in, thin air. It needs a skull in which it fits into the sockets, right? And then it needs muscles, and it needs bones, and it needs blood vessels, and it needs tissue, and it needs all of this to sustain it. Then it needs a digestive system to provide nutrients to it. It needs an excretory system to take out all the bad stuff. It needs the full thing, the full system, all bells and whistles. All the mind wanted was to see, but now you have to bear a headache as well. Now you have backaches and knee aches and headaches and migraines. You didn't ask for any of that, but that comes as baggage. It's like you didn't ask for your in-laws, right? You only wanted your other half. But she didn't come alone. And he didn't come alone either. They always come with baggage. In the same manner, when the mind wishes to see, it doesn't just land with a pair of eyes. It lands with the full package. And that's why you have to suffer like this. When the mind wishes to taste, it needs a tongue. It needs some device that helps you to pick up flavor. How many times have you bitten your tongue? Countless times. Or got something stuck in your tongue, or maybe had a blister or something in your tongue. Does it not hurt? Do you remember the last time you bit your tongue? Right? How did you find that fun? It was painful, wasn't it? You didn't ask for that, did you? You didn't want the pain, but you wanted taste. When the mind wants taste, it has to be provided with a device that helps it to experience flavor. And that comes with baggage. The same goes for all of your senses. Your entire body is just a problem waiting to happen. It's a ticking time bomb. And even if you could save your bodies from all these ailments, ultimately it's going to break and it's going to be destroyed and it's going to die. Once it starts rotting in bed, there's not much you can do. Once you get the bed sores, there's not much you can do. When I once wanted to be a doctor, I used to work in a care home. And I provided care along with the nurses to elderly patients. And that was a hospice. So a hospice was where people would come to spend the last years of their life, and they knew that that was terminal. So they had some kind of terminal illness. Either they had cancer or Alzheimer's or something like that. There was no hope of recovery. So I remember, many of the time, most of the time, a lot of them had bed sores. So we would often go turning them around in their beds, but after a while, it gets very sore again. You have to go turn them again. And, then if there were time where we were really busy, if the staff were really busy, and they would not be able to turn themselves because they were rigid and they couldn't move themselves. See, in those moments, you now have to bear the consequences. And besides, you're just staring up at the ceiling. That's not what the mind wanted. Because those patients, they can't get anywhere. Just imagine the TV is on this side of the room. Because you have bed sores, you've just turned into the other side of the bed. Now you can't turn around. The TV is on that side. You have to wait until the nurses come and turn you around again. Now the mind is just staring at the door, or at the walls, or at the ceiling. That's all. But now it's too late. You can't fix that now. Now you just have to bear the consequences. Don't you all know that you're going to be bedridden one day? Ladies and gentlemen? Today, you're fit enough to bring yourselves here. You climb up the stairs. Well done. If you are too weak to climb up the stairs, you've probably taken the lift. Either way, you somehow manage to get yourself out of home, dress yourselves up, and bring you here, right? You brought yourselves here. You do understand that you're not going to be able to do it forever. One day you're all going to be bedridden. Just like a vegetable on a bed. You won't be able to move yourself even. Someone will have to come and turn you around, change your nappies for you again, just like they did when you were a baby. You know that? Yes? Good. Don't forget. You'll start peeing in your pants again, just like you did when you were younger. You'll start pooing in your pants again, just like when you were younger. And someone will have to come and clean you and wash you and change you. And what if they're too busy? So what are you going to say, Swamina? So by that point I'll have earned enough and I'll buy myself a maid. You can buy a maid, you can't buy commitment. What if she doesn't like you very much? She just wants a job. As long as she gets paid, how can you test? You're going to have a trial with her for a while, and then if she doesn't like that, then again you'll have to keep changing. But how are you going to find commitment? Your children will not be able to do it for you every day because they have their own lives to live. Yes, they have their own children to look after, your grandchildren. And many of them will not even be in the country. They'll have settled themselves down in other countries. So what's going to happen then? I can see many of you, you're now nearing that age in your life. You're now nearing that time in your life where you're going to be bedridden. And this is if something else doesn't happen to you before then. Like who knows, you might fall down the stairs and break your back or something, and then that's it. You're paralyzed for the rest of your life. But even if it's just natural decay that takes over, at some point you're going to be bedridden. And there's going to be a day, ladies and gentlemen, you're just going to be staring up at the ceiling and nothing more. That's as exciting as it's going to get. Are you ready for that? Don't tell yourself, I will be Swaminatha when I'm at that point, there's nothing else I can do, so I'll just keep staring at the ceiling. No, that's not how it works. If you're not ready now, you won't be ready then. It doesn't work like that. Remember, each chitta is a brand new chitta. Today you might be able to tell yourself, I'm prepared for anything, I'm prepared for death. I've heard people who say that. Now I've done everything in my life, Swaminatha, I don't even care about my life anymore. I'm prepared for death. Whenever it comes, I'm ready for that. Someone holds a gun to their head, they're gone. It doesn't need to be that bad. If they eat something bad and they get a really bad stomachache or something, now they're at the doctor saying, Doctor, please, will I die? It's one thing to think this, but it's another thing when it is reality. You got to understand your mind first. All these stories that your mind keeps telling you, don't buy all of that. When your mind says, I'm brave, I can do this, I can do that. The last thing you should do is trust your mind when your mind speaks with ignorance. Didn't your mind tell you that you'd be happy when you get married? Your mind told you that. Didn't your mind tell you that you'd be happy when you go on that roller coaster ride? When you go on that trip? When you get into that job? And see, where are you now? If marriage was so great and wonderful, why are you here on a Sunday morning? Go be with your spouse. This is not meant to insult you. This is meant to open your eyes. Don't fall for what your mind tells you when your mind speaks with ignorance. Ignorance is just that. Ignorance of the truth. Ignorance of what happiness truly is. It's the most disastrous weapon that you have, your own mind, when it speaks out of ignorance. Only a mind that speaks with wisdom can be trusted. Viswasa paramanyati is the meaning of that. That is the meaning. Only when it speaks with wisdom can the mind be trusted. But when the mind speaks with ignorance, it must not be trusted. The mind says, jump off a cliff. The mind says, see what things the mind says. Have you not seen people do crazy adventure stuff? They call it adventure. You look at that and go, good Lord, what are these people thinking about? There's a hungry lion in a cage and someone thinks it's a smart idea to put their hand into it. You've not seen that? Or there's an alligator and someone thinks it's a smart idea just to stick its finger to see whether they can provoke the animal. And how many times has such things gone wrong? And apparently YouTube is full of them. How people think it's fun, but they sometimes don't even live to tell the tale. But it just gets captured on camera, and so others realize, shouldn't try that. I remember a long time ago there was a TV series called 1,000 Ways to Die. And many of those were about things, interesting, fun things that people would do. Because their mind said, do it. Get on a slide and slide. How many times have those things gone wrong? Getting on a roller coaster, how many times have they gone wrong? Plenty of times, ladies and gentlemen, these things have gone wrong and people have suffered as a result of that. Racing. Just think about it for a second. People think it's a good idea to get into a car and race on the racetrack. They don't realize how much of a risk they're putting themselves through. It's fun for you to watch it for entertainment, But just think about the risk that the man puts himself in once he gets into the car. Formula One racing. As they drive at blazing speeds around those bends. Just watching it, my heart skips a beat. Just imagine what those minds must be telling them to do. I used to enjoy adventure. Today, oh no. Because now I don't listen to everything my mind says. I realize today that those days my mind was full of ignorance and used to tell me to do this, that and the other. And I was putting myself into unnecessary risks. Because the tiniest, the simplest mistake would have costed me my life. An opportunity I had to free myself from suffering. Go into the hospitals, ladies and gentlemen, and see there are many people there who are now paralyzed, bedridden, because of something that they did for fun. They never thought it would happen to them, but it did. I enjoyed mountain climbing. Those are things I used to do. It was fun. The excitement of it, the adrenaline rush, that's what I wanted. What a fool I was. One slip, one fall would be all it would take. And I wouldn't be here today. Just imagine if I died 10 years ago doing one of those things, what would I have lost? The dhamma, right? Because the dhamma was due to come to me 5 years later, 10 years later, if something had happened to me. That's why I say, don't trust everything your mind tells you. If it speaks out of ignorance, you must not trust it. And the problem is this. We are all born with ignorance. So unfortunately, the only voice that you can hear is an ignorant voice. So what's the remedy? How do you come out of that? If the only voice you hear is an ignorant voice, it's not like you have two voices, one with ignorance and one with wisdom. It's not like that. Until you have seen the Dhamma and begun to realize that happiness is not in these worldly pursuits. It's not in these adventure sports. It's not in driving a car down the street at blazing speeds. It's not in any of that. It's not in archery. It's not in horse riding. It's not in any of these things, but it's in discovering that happiness is within myself. Until the mind sees that, the mind is going to want to go after these worldly pleasures and pursuits. Now put all those adventure stuff to aside for a moment. Think about how much some people expend their valuable lives trying to start up and build up a business. There may be plenty of businessmen out there amongst you. I also wanted to do business at one point in my life. In fact, alongside my university life, I started something just on the side to see how it would go. And then very soon I got the Dhamma. And then I realized that's not what I wanted to do in my life. Perhaps if I had gone down that path, I would have become a successful businessman today. But then, what I'm trying to say, ladies and gentlemen, is just imagine if you had invested your entire life in building up a business, right? Yes, by the end of your 50 years of existence, you might have built up an empire. Perhaps. Maybe a number of different businesses. Today it's a conglomerate. Perhaps. But then, what have you done for yourself? Your assets will be in the billions, if not in the millions. But what for yourself? You would have not moved one step closer to true happiness. If you read the biographies of people like Steve Jobs, you know what they say towards the end? This is how I built my business, this is how I built up my company, but at the end I realized that true happiness was not in any of that. Why do we have to keep going making the same mistakes over and over again until we realize that we are also just lab rats? Please remember this, if you don't have your own plan, you're in someone else's plan. The whole world, they're plotting up against you. I want you to realize that. And it's not because they're bad or terrible, it's because that's the way the system works. The whole world is plotting up against you. Let me explain to you. The government, they want you to be in jobs because you have to keep the country going. You have to keep the economy moving. Is that what you were born for? The schools want you to become teachers. Students want you to become teachers so that you can be teachers and you can teach them. Is that what you were born for? To teach? Patients want you to become doctors so that you can treat them. Is that what you were born for? People want you to become bankers so you can handle their money and make more money out of money. Is that what you were born for? The buyers want you to become vendors. They want you to become realtors so that you can sell land to them. Is that what you were born for? They want you to become surveyors so that you can survey their lands before they buy it. And then they'll pay you a little bit of money for that. They want you to become shopkeepers. They want you to become fishmongers. They want you to become salesmen. They want you to become drivers. They want you to become actors so that they can entertain at your expense. I care deeply about these people, about all people. Sometimes, some people, they envy people such as actors, actresses, and so on, because they apparently they live the good life as celebrities. I see it from a completely different angle. They spend their lives living, most of the time, a life that is there purely for the entertainment of the viewer. That's not their real life even. It's not even their real life. On stage, that's not their real life, right? Just imagine on stage they solve a problem. Does that solve a problem in their real life? But is that what they were born for? Just imagine that. Coming on stage from 9 to 5, acting for the entertainment of viewers. Yes, they get paid. They may get paid lots, maybe. But that's not what a human being was born for, not to earn money. A human was born to earn happiness. And money does not bring happiness. If money brought happiness, then all rich people should be happy. Are they? There are people who I get to meet sometimes and they say, Swaminathan, today I have a big business. I have this huge company. I used to be happier when I didn't have all this. And I used to be able to live a simple life. There was me, my wife, we had 2 children, and we just lived a very simple life. I was much happier back then because I could finish my job at 5, come home and be with my family. Today, I can't do that. Today, I have to work weekends, I have to work nights, I'm working my socks off day in, day out, because I have now become the company. I have become the business. I have no time for myself. I have no time for my children. I have built a huge house. It's a mansion, 5 stories. There's a basement in which I park my cars. There's a gymnasium to which I've never been ever since it was built. I even have a swimming pool on the roof. I don't go there, but my dogs get a dip in there once in a while. So I have built all this, but I don't even get to use it. But I have a big business to my name. And my bank account will say that I have so much to my name. I'm worth a lot. But to me, I'm worthless. All these are sad stories when you come to the last full stop. I really don't want any of you to be in that situation. Because why do I not want you to be in that situation? For one reason. You all have the merits to have come across the sasana. You have found the sasana, ladies and gentlemen. You have found the sasana. For whatever merits you have done, for whatever circumstances your life has thrown you around, Today you're here. And that is a miracle almost. It's almost a miracle. How many people out in Colombo versus how many here today? Today is a Sunday morning. After you finish the sermon, we drive out and you look around what people are doing. It's a weekend. People enjoy themselves, they entertain themselves, they go around having fun. The restaurants will be full in a few hours' time. The clubs will be full with people partying and dancing in a few hours' time. It was probably the same last night as well, and on Friday night. This is life for people. I'm shocked. I remember when I first went to the UK, and I also wanted to experience a little bit of that. My friends would ask me to come out Friday nights, and I used to go to that. Fortunately, my merits kept me safe. So there was no unsafe behavior of any sort, so that my merits kept me safe. But I went there. I spent many hours there. Music, dance, all that stuff. But all that time was wasted for absolutely nothing. My mind only wanted happiness, but I didn't know that because I didn't know the philosophy of happiness. Paramananda's story is the same. The thing is this. We all start here. That's me. That's you. This is where I am today. I didn't get there in a straight line. I went like this. Today you're starting out from wherever you are. And I'm here now and I'm saying, hey, just come here, straight. You tell me, but Swaminathan, look at how you've been around. Surely we should follow in your footsteps. No, that was the old me. That me was dead. This is a new me. When I've already been around the block, and I can tell you, hand on heart, that all of this was a waste of time. Time that I can now not get back. And I appeal to you, just come straight and save all this time and hard work and the heartache and the money and the investments and all that. Because happiness is not in any of these places. But people said, come to the supermarket, come to the shops, come to the party. There will be happiness there waiting for you. Get married, have kids, buy a car, start up a business. Go work in a bank, become a doctor, get yourself a degree. And happiness? Here. Go abroad, settle down, buy a house, buy another one. Invest. Bitcoin. I did all that. But happiness was up here. Nowhere here was happiness. So why do you want to go all this way before you get here? Why do you want to do what I did when I was a fool? Why do you want to do what he did when he was a fool? I killed the old fool. I gave that up. I shut him off. Now I speak with wisdom. Happiness is not in any of these things. Why should we pay twice to learn the same lesson? Whether it's your life or my life, it's still paying, isn't it? Why should we pay twice to learn the same lesson? I already paid once. I've already paid once. Why do you also want to pay? To learn the same lesson? What lesson? That none of this was of any use? See, somewhere along this line you will find yourself today. My point is this: if you're here, don't go all the way here to come up here. There's a path, a straight path. If you're here, don't go all the way there to come up here. It's a straight path. I'm not necessarily talking about monkhood. I'm talking about your attitude of monkhood. Stop looking for happiness in any of these things, ladies and gentlemen, because happiness cannot be found in them. If they can, then I was wrong. I'm wrong today then. If happiness was there in any of these things, then I'm wrong today. Don't come to this sermon. Because I'm filling your minds with rubbish. If happiness is to be found in investing, if happiness is to be found in getting married, if happiness is to be found in buying houses or buying property, going places, partying, trips, if happiness is to be found in those things, then don't come to this sermon. Because then I'm wrong. I was right back then, I'm wrong today then. I can't be both at the same time. You see, I drew a line and said anything below this is wrong. Wrong in the sense, not that they're sins. Wrong in the sense that if you do them for the sake of happiness, it's not going to get you there. Futile. That's what I mean. So here's what I want you to do. Here's what I'm asking you to do. You try and figure out where you are on this path. And then draw a straight line. Because the way the world works is not like that. If today you are a millionaire, then the next goal is what? To become a multimillionaire. Yes or no? That's the way the world works. If today you are a businessman and you've just started up one business and you have run it for the last 5 years and it's very successful, go to any business forum, what will they tell you to do? They'll say this: don't invest all your eggs in one basket. Diversify. What does that mean? Start up another one. So you can double your problems. And reduce the number of hours you sleep. That's because people always have to live on the edge. Because I understand why though. People like living on the edge. It's like it's like going on a roller coaster ride. Because while they're on the edge, they're always on the edge of anticipation. This edge, it's the edge of expectation. It's that vexation that they feel. So when something works out in their favor, now they're relieved of that vexation and they feel a sense of pleasure. That is what people have become addicted to because they don't know that there's an alternative. They are blind. Don't be led by the blind. I mean, you can't take life lessons from them and me at the same time. Because these lessons are 180 degrees apart. One says start a business, the other says wrap it up as soon as you can. Or just do enough to sustain yourself. Because you were not born to earn money or to feed your stomach or to build a house. That's not what you were born for. Your mind doesn't need a house. Your body needs a house. Your mind needs sights, sounds, smells, taste, touch. And to get all those, you had to be born with a body. And now that body has to be put in a house. That's what you got to understand. Let me ask you this question. I'm trying to bring in these analogies so that it makes sense to you. In some houses, when they build houses, they make maids' quarters, don't they? If you have one at your place, is the maid's room as big as your bedroom? It's a unanimous no. Why? Please think. Why is the maid's room not as large as your bedroom? And in some places they don't have it. Your bedroom has an attached bathroom. If you're feeling awfully generous, you might actually build an attached bathroom in your maid's bedroom, but not every house is like that. In most houses, the bathrooms are on the outside, so the maid has to go out, do their thing, and then come back. But not all houses are like that. In most houses, what you find is the maid's room will just be a small chamber, that's all. Probably the size of a hut or a kuti that we have at the monastery. That's the size of the maid's room. It's not as big as your bedroom. Why is that? Do you somehow sleep more than she does? Do you need more space to sleep? To spread your arms and legs? A bed is as far as you can reach, right? When you extend your arms and legs. That's because of this. This is the reason for that. You didn't want to hire a maid to sleep. You hired a maid to get work from her. Yes? So really what you wanted was the work, the labor. That's what you wanted, labor. You're paying for her labor, not for her to sleep. Because you're hiring her labor, but you have to provide her with a room so that she can rest. That room is purely going to be a functional room. As long as it's got the basic amenities, there's a bed somewhere, right? She has access to a washroom, right? That's all you will provide for her, because that's not her home. That's just the place where she rests when she's tired working. Yes? Right. Well, in the same way. Now think about your own selves. What does your mind come into this world for? Happiness. Right? But because it was ignorant, the mind thought that it needed eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and a body. And to give you all that, it had to come with the package. The package is your body. Now for your bodies, you have made a bedroom half the size of your house. But that's not what the mind wanted. If the mind wanted just happiness, how come your bedroom is so big? How come the kitchen is so big? How come the washroom is so big? How come your house is so big? This is just the maid. Your body is just the maid. It should just be a functional house, like the kuti that we live in. As long as it gives shelter, as long as there's a bed to sleep on, as long as there's a washroom that you can use, and somewhere where you can dress up, that's all you need. But how come your house is so big? Reason is, this is also you somehow. You married into your body. That's what happened. That's like when the maid arrives, you say, maid, you don't have to be in the maid's chambers, you can come and sleep in my bed. Now she's no longer your maid, is she? If you've invited her to the bedroom, that's no longer your maid. Read between the lines, you know what I mean. See, if that has happened, then somewhere down the line you've gone wrong, haven't you? Something's gone wrong down the line. If the maid who's come to work in your kitchen is now sleeping on your bed in your bedroom, something's gone wrong. Very wrong. That was not how it was supposed to happen. In the same way, your minds were born to experience freedom from suffering, unconditional happiness. But because the mind was ignorant, at the moment that it started this journey, it picked up all this baggage. And because it's picked up all this baggage, and you married into it, and you thought this baggage was you as well, you took the whole package as one, and you forgot that the mind is one and the body is another. I have to somehow free myself from this body. You never thought about that. You always thought that this is me, all of this is me. The thought that I have to free myself from my body sooner rather than later never crossed your mind until you listened to the Dhamma. And because of that, the whole of you was treated as one unit. And therefore, your house had to be big enough to satisfy your whole being. When actually, the mind simply came into this world looking for happiness. Something went wrong somewhere down the line. Very wrong. And to build that house, how many years of your life did you invest? You're still paying the mortgage. And you're 50 today, you're still paying the mortgage. Maybe you're already considering an extension. But you don't need any of that because your mind just needs happiness. It doesn't need any of these other things that you seem to keep adding on top of that. I don't know whether you understand the value of your life, ladies and gentlemen. I really don't know whether you understand the value of your life. All of these things are a waste of time. Frankly, buying a car is a waste of time. All you need is to get from place A to place B, not a car. If you could teleport yourself, that's what you should opt for, not to buy a car. I get from A to B, but I don't have a car. But if your mind thinks that it needs to have a car to itself, a car that belongs to it, now you have to work hard, you have to buy a car. And then you have to maintain that car. Then you have to protect your car. You have to keep it safe. And all the other things that you have to do when you buy something. Every possession that you have with you, you are its guardian. See, actually half the time you're just protecting your property than the property serving you. Now who's the slave? When the necklace, I just imagine a necklace you buy or a watch, a fancy watch, while it's in the shop, the shopkeeper looks after it. But once you acquire it, now you look after it. You don't wear it around the clock. You only wear it when you go out. Yeah, when you step outside, you put the watch on, you put the necklace on. But while it's at home, don't you have to look after it? Don't you have to keep it under lock and key? The CCTV cameras are fitted around your house, always guarding your property. See, so you have to look after it 24/7. You wear it 7. So maybe 7 hours a week you wear it, but 24/7 you look after it. See where you've started divesting your time? Actually, this is called spending your time, not investing your time. So, wake up. Don't let this happen to you. This is daylight robbery. You have allowed your time to be stolen from you. Just under your very nose. Time just keeps on flying under your very nose and you don't even know what's happening to you. And because you don't age overnight, you don't have this idea that you age, because every day it's just a little bit, isn't it? Every day just a tiny bit. You don't go up to your mirror and all of a sudden all your hair has gone grey. It doesn't happen like that. It's just one strand. One day you see one strand of hair. What do? You pluck it out. So pretend that it never happened. And then a week later, there's another one. You pluck that out as well. 3 weeks later, there's a fair few now. So then you start dyeing your hair. So always trying to pretend that this problem is not there. Whereas in fact, the problem is actually there. It's a very real problem. Your body is trying to tell you, hey, you're growing old now. Do something with whatever life you have left. And you're saying, oh no, don't talk to me like that. And you cover it all up. And once again look fine and dandy, and you step outside with the young boys and the girls, and you go to the party. No, yeah, honestly, no. I remember in my lay life, sometimes in some of the parties I've been to, like there are some old grannies and granddads who come dressed like young boys and girls, and I wonder, when are they going to learn? I mean, I feel really sorry for them. I feel sorry for them because of this. I feel like they have still not been able to live their youth. Like they're now, 65, 70, and they still want to live their youth, meaning they still haven't discovered happiness. They're still trying to be par with the youth, and they just don't fit anyway. They don't fit, but the young people don't tell them to them into their faces, but of course, the sooner, as quickly as possible, they send them off. Granddad, it's too late now, why don't you go home? Or they give them a little bit of drink, and then they're as good as, they're fast asleep. So they just try and somehow dispose of them as quickly as possible. I really feel for them. These are people who've lived for 65 years of their life, and they still haven't discovered how to be happy. And so they still go to the parties. I'm not saying that it's bad or wrong for anyone to go to a party. If you want to go to a party, you go to a party. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, don't do it for happiness. A party won't make you happy. I've been there, I've done that, I want the t-shirt. I know parties don't make you happy. If you how many parties have you been to by this point? If a party made you happy, how come you're here today? Why don't you just keep throwing party after party after party after party? By the time you've done the second party, you're sick of them. After that, your party is not doing a party for the next 6 months. That's your party. These are all very temporary pursuits of happiness. And that's not really happiness at all. It's just pleasure, moments of pleasure, fleeting moments of pleasure. The problem is, you are expending your valuable life which you can never get back. And I'm not even talking about the 4 great hells. Because there'll be some among you who still don't believe in that. But put the 4 great hells to a side. People make a living hell in this life itself. Whenever your mind does something that does not help it achieve happiness, true happiness, that's a hell that the mind creates for itself. Like I said, living on the edge of life, that excitement. When you watch sport, playing sport, I get. Watching sport, that I don't get. It makes no sense. Playing sport, yes, because there's the exercise you get out of it. Right? That's useful. Watching sport, all you're doing is vexing and relieving from vexation. Vexing and relieving from vexation. That's all that's happening. And the batsman on the field and the bowlers running in with the ball. Now, depends on which side you are. If you have picked a side, then that's vexation and relief from vexation. So when the ball's up in the air, now you're on the edge of your seat. You don't even get paid for it. At least they get paid for it. That's what I'm saying. Playing sport, I get, because it's a way of life for some. It's how they make their living. And that's fine. It's for exercise. But watching sport, okay, think about this for a second. 1996, who won the World Cup? Sri Lanka did, right? Okay, what did that do for you? I'll tell you what it did for you. For about the next 2 years, you talked about it. And even to this day, that's all we talk about. Right? So we won the World Cup. Okay. So, did they give you a free lunch out of it? Did your child get to a better school because of that? Did you somehow get a qualification of some sort? But do you remember the number of hours you sat in front of your TV watching that game? You got nothing out of it, right? Except for relief from vexation. As the balls were thrown into the batsman, and the batsman was batting, and people running around the field, on the edge, I remember watching it. I was there. I was there when it happened. I was watching the same game. But if you ask me today, what did I get out of it? Other than a fleeting moment of pleasure, nothing more. But that time, I cannot get back now. However, if I had invested that time in studying the Dhamma or doing some meritorious deed, do you think watching sport is meritorious? Watching sport, meritorious? Of course not. That's not meritorious. Actually, what you're doing is you're expending your merit as you watch it. You're expending your merit, because to be able to see itself is merit expended. Each time you see something, that's your merit consumed. Each time you hear something, your merit consumed. Your vipaka is being consumed. But it doesn't give you anything out of it. You don't get anything out of it. But your merit is being consumed. You don't become wiser. You don't become smarter. Your hunger doesn't get fed. Your thirst doesn't get quenched. You don't get a house. You don't get anything. But you sit, watch TV, watch the sport for many hours at a time sometimes. Sometimes if you watch the whole tournament, right, then you're there for weeks. What do you get out of it? Absolutely nothing. But why do you watch it though? Because someone put into your head that cricket must be watched. If your country is playing, you must watch it. That's what they put into my head. So which country do I belong to then? Where did that come from? That was also planted in my head. My mind has no nationality. It has no nationality to identify with. Did you know? Were you a Sri Lankan when you were born? As in, did you know that you were Sri Lankan when you were born? Well, someone taught you that, right? And then from there on, you appreciated Sri Lankan. So when Sri Lanka played, you were happy. Why? Because someone said you were Sri Lankan. You didn't even know you were born in Sri Lanka. Just imagine you were born in Sri Lanka and someone said you were Indian. Imagine you grew up like that. Then how would it have worked out? Then you would have identified yourself as an Indian and you would have enjoyed Indian things. So who are you then? What is this identity that you have? It's basically what people have put into your minds. You are not any of them. You are just a mind looking for happiness. But in the pursuit of your happiness, people have kept on feeding stuff into your minds and you have been gulping all that. You've been swallowing each of those things with no discernment whatsoever. Whatever people threw at you, you collected, you picked it up and you hoarded it all in your mind, and now you have become what you think. Your whole identity you have defined for yourselves. And because you have defined those identities, you have taken these paths in life and you are still on them. But this is the only place where you can find happiness. See, somewhere down the line when you were younger, ladies and gentlemen, someone would have said you should have an ambition. That's why you all went on to do different things. When you were younger, your parents would have asked you, what's your ambition? What do you want to be? Your friends would have asked you, your teachers would have asked you. Maybe at school when you were supposed to give a talk, they would have said, come and talk about yourself, my self-speech. And someone would have asked, what's your ambition? Ambition? What's that? Well, who do you want to become? Become? Should I become someone? Am I not already someone? No, you have to become someone. What do you mean become someone? Become someone, like an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer or someone. Oh, must I? Yeah. Oh, okay. What must I become? Go and talk to a few people, find out what you're interested in. It's not what you are interested in, it's what people interested you in. That's what happened. So you went around talking to people and everyone put something into your head. Your brother put something into your head, your sister put something into your head, your mother put something into your head, your friends put something into your head. And then all of a sudden, you want to become someone. And that someone was somewhere on this path. You were still here. So what did you have to do then from there on? Drive along that path, walk along that path until you somehow got to that path. And then you became. And because you were always vexing to become that, because someone planted that idea in your mind, it became an expectation in your own mind. When you achieved it, you experienced a moment of relief. So if you remember graduating from university, on that day that you were invited to the convocation, they gave you your certificate, you held it up like this, and you throw the thing in the air, and they posted the picture, made you really happy, didn't it? Are you still just as happy? What happened to that happiness? How come you're still not, you're not that happy today? Because that was a point in the past. Today you have different problems. That's why that was merely a moment of pleasure. It was not happiness. See, the problem in life, ladies and gentlemen, is if you settle for pleasure rather than go for happiness, you must always keep doing things to be happy or for pleasure. You must always keep on doing things. That's why your lives are so busy. That's why lives are so hectic. Make a list of the things you have to do this week. Each and every one of those things will be an extension of something you've had to do because you thought doing that will make you happy. How about you make a list where there is nothing at all on it? Can you imagine that? Say a whole week of you doing nothing. You say, yes, so when can I have that? Not just a week, for the rest of your life. That you won't be happy with. There's a reason for that. Because if I propose to you a week of doing nothing, you think that's a holiday. And you'd love that. So no cooking, no cleaning, no taking the dog for a walk, no school runs, right? No doing the dishes, no doing this, there, no chores, nothing, no shopping. I can just relax, put my feet up in the air and enjoy myself. A week? Yes. 2 weeks? Okay, nice. 3? How about a whole month of doing nothing? 2, 3, 4, 5. A whole year of doing nothing? You're not supposed to do anything. You're forbidden from doing things. Now it becomes a punishment. See, how can a holiday become a punishment? That's because your minds tell you that we have to do something to be happy. That's what you have been indoctrinated with, to do something to be happy. Always there has to be an endeavor before happiness will come to you. This is the way that we have learned to live life. Always put ourselves into vexation, and then that vexation is relieved at the moment you experience the object of your pursuit. It's time to change that system. For your sake, ladies and gentlemen, it's time you change that system. Don't take what people tell you at face value. Don't be that lab rat. Don't be the one who just takes everything that people throw at you. Because remember, the whole world is cooing against you. All they want is what makes them happy. The world doesn't really care much about you because there are 8 billion of people like you. There's 8 billion of you. You are very much dispensable. Before you took up your job, someone else did it, didn't they? Yes? Whether you are a teacher, doctor, engineer, lawyer, whatever, company director, before you took that job, someone else was doing that, right? So when they left, when they retired, did the position somehow become vacant and then there was no one who was able to fill that role? Sooner rather than later, you got picked and you have now taken that seat and now you're doing that job. While you're doing that job, people will make you think, your boss will make you think, your employees will make you think like you are the bee's knees. That without you, the whole company will fail. That nothing will be doable without you. You are the whole, the whole thing hangs on you and around you. That's what they will tell you because they want you to be there. They want to keep you there. But don't forget, tomorrow you get a heart attack. They take you to hospital and they declare you almost as good as dead. There's no coming back to work. A week later, someone else will be in that seat. You are dispensable. Like a tissue paper. Once you use the tissue, where does it go? In the trash. But there's a whole box of it. There's plenty more where you came from. Every year, the med schools will be graduating med students. The law schools will be graduating law students, lawyers. Engineering schools will be graduating engineers. Don't you think for a moment that you're the only one who can do whatever it is that you're doing right now. You are very much dispensable. You are just a tissue paper. Do you remember when you were younger, you used to give myself speeches? Shall I give you a little bit of a homework? When you go home today, right, get up on a stage platform, wherever, maybe on the pantry or something. Right, or home, bed, get on your bed, right, gather your family and give a speech. But this time, say, I am a tissue paper. Give that speech. I am just here because people need to use me. Think of it from this perspective for a moment. When a man dies, if a woman can go and find another man, when the woman dies, if a man can go and find another woman, do you realize that even in marriage, you are dispensable? Think about this for a second, folks. I speak on your behalf. Please think about yourself for a second. In your company today, they'll give you a company car, they'll give you a mobile phone, they'll give you a laptop, they'll give you staff, they'll give you a nice office with glass walls and a rotating chair. Right? They'll give you a maid to make tea for you, bring lunch to your desk and all that. But the day that you are gone, someone else will come and take that seat. You are dispensable. Only to you are you indispensable. Only to you. Because once you are lost only to you. For the whole world, they will replace you just like that. Remember, the whole world doesn't rotate around you. But people will make you think like that. People will keep on saying all these things into your ear. Right? They'll try and soothe you and sweet talk you. They'll do that to you. As I said, the whole world is going against you. It's only a few people like you and I. Swaminathan and myself, the Mahasangha will come and remind you there's no one to look after yourself if you don't. These are all the places that the whole world will take you. They'll say, why don't you come and take up directorship of our company? We'll pay you another $1 million. Okay, that's another $1 million for you, to your name. What can you do with that $1 million? How many meals can you eat per day? If you already have millions in the bank, what more is another $1 million going to do? I'll tell you what it's going to do. It'll take up another 6 hours of your week for that $1 million that's going to go into your bank account with which you're going to do absolutely nothing. Because you already have money in the bank. But it'll take up another 6 hours of your week. That 6 hours was 6 hours you could have invested here. You're spending time you don't have. Don't you get that? You're on a lease. You're spending time you don't have. Once again, I'm not suggesting that you should all give up your lay lives and come and become monks and get into a robe. That's not what I'm suggesting, because I know it's not feasible. It's not practical. But here's what I'm saying. Even when you're in your lay lives, when you're living your domestic lives as you do as householders, don't diversify your time even more, starting up new things, getting yourself into other enterprises and doing lots and lots and lots and lots more just because people come and put all this stuff into your minds, into your heads. Save that time as much as you can for your own salvation. If you don't have to work weekends, ladies and gentlemen, don't work weekends. Save the Saturday for yourself. Whatever you have learned in these sermons, use that time to contemplate. Or at least if you can't contemplate, stay at home with your family. Why do you have to give up all 7 days of your week? Why? When you're not taking any of it with you when you go. If you have enough to put a roof above your head, if you have enough to give yourself 3 square meals a day, if your children have their education and you have enough to fulfill your duties and responsibilities, then why can't you be content with that? I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't be ambitious. I'm saying you should be rightly ambitious. Like right livelihood. Your ambitions should be right. Noble ambitions. Be ambitious. Ambitious towards this. If you don't fight for this, no one else will. Otherwise it will just become a rat race of a life and people won't care about that. As long as you get their dirty work done, that's it. As long as you're there for the meetings, as long as you get the actions done, as long as you're there to follow up on the decisions that have been made, as long as you're there to pay the bills, as long as you're there to manage the staff, as long as you're there to tick the boxes, cross the I's and dot the T's, or the other way around, it doesn't matter to the people. Don't come tell me your boss cares about your salvation. There's only one boss who cares about your salvation. That's you. Your boss will care about how much money you can make for them at the end of the day. How many new customers they can sign up. How do I know this? Because when you're done, someone else, he or she will employ to do just that. Before you came along, someone else did that as well. Don't identify yourself by the work you do, is what I'm suggesting here. Don't identify yourself with the work you do. Give yourself your own identity. That identity is this. I'm working towards my salvation. That is who you are. Become that. Become a monk in your attitude. I'm a bhikkhu. A bhikkhu is someone who works towards their salvation. That is the definition of a bhikkhu. You don't have to be in a robe for that. In your own lay lives, work towards that ambition. Become a bhikkhu. This can be your robe. That's fine. It doesn't have to be red. You can be in colored clothes. You can be in white. But be a bhikkhu at heart. Someone who works for their salvation. Because in a few years' time, no one will talk about you. When you're dead and gone, no one's going to talk about you. How often do you think about your grandfather? You think about your father maybe once a year on his death anniversary. Once a year you think about your father. Your grandfather, no one gives a damn. Once your father died, your grandfather was lost in the dunes of time. In the same way, once you are dead, your children will talk about you once a year. That's also if they remember and if they have the virtues and the values to be grateful towards their parents. But in the way the world is going today, that's not what keeps getting fed into children's minds. It's their education, their wealth, their property, becoming successful, and technology. Keep putting all that into your children's minds. They will forget that they were your children. They will forget that you were their parents. Because they will be on the pursuit of their own material wealth, their own sensual delights, and they will even forget that you existed in their lives. It won't take 1 year. They will do the tumma sadhani, and that's it. That'll be done. That's also because it's custom. It has to be done. Someone will come and remind them. Has it not been 3 months now since your father passed away? Where shouldn't you give an alms? Oh, really? Should I? Oh, okay then. Because they don't understand the significance of any of these things. Half of them don't even believe that once you're dead, you still go in samsara. Because they don't teach that for science. They don't teach that in maths. At least in the local education system, right? These were things that get talked about by teachers. But now what have we done? We have brought in international education systems into our country. I'm not suggesting that it's bad. Yes, we have to advance ourselves, but in the midst of all that, we have lost what is ours. Our culture's gone. It's going. We have lost our roots. Today in schools, they don't teach about any of these things. They don't teach about what happens after you're dead. They only teach how to stop a patient from dying. That's called med school. How do you stop a patient? How do you stop someone from dying? But after they're dead, what happens to them? Medicine doesn't cover that. But they don't teach that. So if you don't teach that, how are they going to know? And today's young children don't have the time to associate with anyone in a robe. Be that the father in a church or a priest in the at the temple. They don't have the time for any of that. I suspect that although you are here, your children are too busy to be here. Forgive me. I know it's a bold assumption, but unfortunately that is the truth. You're here, but your children are too busy to be here. They're too preoccupied with things. So they don't learn any of this stuff. But you teach them, you educate them. You give them the world's best education. If not here, then send them somewhere else and then they'll learn there. But once they're there, who's going to teach them about you? And what sacrifice their parents made on their behalf? Who's going to teach them about this? Who's going to talk to them about what happens to them when they die? And how it is only their karma that's going to be their vipaka? Who's going to talk to them about that? Seems like with our past, we've also lost our future. Both at the same time. Then we're just like a bunch of zombies. Don't know where we came from, don't know where we're heading. Just live for the day. Because that's what the world says we have to do. People say we have to do this, so we do this. But I remember when I was at school, our teachers used to come. My science teacher used to teach me a bit of science, and she also taught me how to be a good human being. My maths teacher didn't just teach me math, but she reminded me, if you do these things and you die one day, you're going to have to suffer. So it made me question, what do you mean, die, suffer? What's all that about? So I started asking questions because they made me curious about what was going to happen to me. Because their teachers had taught the same for them. But today, like I say, all these education systems from around the world, they have come in. That's not what's read. They have come in raw. They have come in without the essence of what it means to be us. So if we don't inject that into our education, then all we'll get are educated people. They'll have a good head, but they'll have no heart. People like Frankensteins. That's what you'll end up with. So, think about this, ladies and gentlemen. Don't do this to your children. Don't do this to yourself. Your children are entitled to your love. Do I have to remind you of that? Your children are entitled to your love. Your love is not just the money that you put into their bank accounts. Your love is not just the school that you send them to. It's not just giving them a comfortable school van in which they can go to school and back every day. It's not just packing a lunch for them. That's not the love that they need. The love they need is to remind them that true happiness is up here. Otherwise, they'll be sorry that they were born children to you. We must not let that happen. It's time that we become responsible as adults, as parents. Creating a child is a simple thing to do. Even animals can do that. But creating a good human being, that requires a sensible parenting. Sensible knowing that that human being, my little son, my little daughter, was born to achieve mental happiness. And then some of this has to happen because they have to learn to survive. But it should simply be for survival. Surviving their bodies. But pleasing the bodies was not what the mind was born for. This is just baggage that the mind has had to carry. It's not what the mind wanted. The mind just wanted happiness. Like I said, the mind doesn't need sights, or sounds, or smells, or taste, or touch. It doesn't need any of those things. Does this make sense to you? I'm just blabbering on. Is it making sense? You must do something for yourselves, folks. You know, I can cook for you, I can serve, I can mix it all, I can even feed you, but I can't swallow on your behalf. If you spit it out, you will always remain hungry. The best I can do is feed you. So at the monastery we cook. Throughout the week we are cooking up dhamma, so that we can come and serve you. And then we come here and we serve it. And then I mix it and I feed it to you. But you have to chew it and you have to swallow it and you have to ingest it. Please open your eyes and look at what's happening to you. Are you really proud about how you spent the last 50 years of your life? Or the last 40 years, the last 30 years of your life? If you are, great. Carry on. If you're not, then don't let your children walk down the same path. Because they depend on your guidance. Until they reach a certain age in life, they'll be receptive to what you teach them, what you tell them. But after that point, it'll be very difficult to mend them. You know that is true. After a while, the children begin to think that they know better than you. Yeah? Because you were children as well. You know, you know the drill. At some point, you thought you knew better than your parents. Right? Your children are just the same. They'll also think that they know better than you. Before that happens, if possible, remind them that this is what they were born for. Because the world will keep on telling them that this is what they were born for. Because the world just wants to get the most out of them. The world just wants to make them tissue papers as well. So you, the tissue paper, don't become that. There's plenty in the box. You are just one. They'll just snort you and then throw you in the trash. The trash can is full of people like you. I don't mean to hurt or offend, but it must hurt for you to make a change in the way you think. Have a look at the trash can. It's full of people like you. Each one used to wipe dirty, you fill in the blanks. I can go one better than tissue paper if you want. It also starts with a T. You know what I mean? If they put tissue paper in the trash can, you think about what they put in the toilet and flush down. And what they wipe with that. That's what people use you for. To wipe their dirty, that. Put it on the common and flush. No one cares about that after that. It's what happened to your grandfather. It's what happened to your grandmother. It's what happened to your mother and your father. Today they're in a foot 6 foot deep. Sorry, they're in a grave 6 foot deep. No one cares about them. Once a year, you'll remember them and maybe give some alms. That's it. Why do you want to be in the same situation? I'll say it one last time. I'm not suggesting that you must all therefore give up your lay lives and come and become monks. That's not what I'm suggesting. For those of you who can, don't delay. But for those of you who cannot, become a monk at heart. Don't spend every bit of time you have doing these things. If you have half a day spare, don't go start up another business unless you need it to survive. If you don't have the means to make ends meet, then yes, if you have to work 24/7 every single day of the year, then fair enough. But that should be because you need it to keep yourself alive and your family fed. But if you don't need that, then please, for your sake, invest that time in yourself. Listen to the dhamma, practice the dhamma, take yourself to the monastery. Sit down, just sit down and relax for a second. Just relax. Breathe in some fresh air. Eat your food at peace. Without having to watch the TV, you get up to date on the news while you eat your food as well. Or eat while you drive. What are you doing to yourselves? People will tell you, you're very busy, you're very respected. Don't fall for any of that trap. What respected? What are you going to do with respect? So someone respects you. So what? Okay, I respect you. What do you get out of that? A free lunch? Put respect to the dogs. What are you going to do with respect? When you walk into the room, someone stands up and salutes you. Okay, what do you get out of it? I'll tell you what you get out of it. Just a boosted ego. Don't fall for that. Don't let people tickle your ego and make you do things for them. That's what people will do. They'll come and praise your looks. They say, oh, you're very beautiful, very handsome. How pretty you are. How smart you are. How handsome you are. Don't fall for that. Those are just mere praise, just words. They just throw at you in the hope that you will do them a favor. They say, you're very soft-spoken. You're very nice, you're very gentle, you're very kind. You know how when you write formal requests, letters, right? Thank you for your kind generosity. Why do you put the word kind in there? Because you want to please the other person. So when they are pleased, they please you. I mean, I'm not suggesting that we should change the whole world, Politeness, courteousness, all that, let it be. All I'm saying is, don't you fall into that trap. Just because someone comes and begs at your feet and say that you are, God personified, right? Don't fall for that trap. They'll say, you're Krishna. Don't fall for that trap. One day they'll tell you, you're an avatar of Krishna. Oh, don't fall for that trap. Come to your senses. You're just a mind, lost in samsara, looking for happiness. That's all you are. When people praise you with humility, just say thank you. But don't fall for that trap. Don't let that become part of your identity. When they call you doctor, professor, don't fall for that. Just understand that they're being courteous and politely acknowledge. That's it. But don't fall into that. Don't let that become part of your identity. That's what they do. Most of the time they give awards every year. That's how the world works, right? Excuse me. The award for the best, whatever. And so from once in a while they'll have a gathering and they'll have a ceremony and then they'll give you an award for something. And when that person comes on the stage and takes the award and there's a whole world giving a standing ovation, they pose for pictures and now that man becomes, it's like he's now possessed. So from there on, he wants that recognition, that respect. And because of that, now he's basically in their pocket. A lot of people will try and get things out of you by giving you an award. Top, best of the year. They'll give you an award and hope to get something out of you. Don't fall for that. You don't have to fight back. You don't have to offend them or anything. Just politely acknowledge. That's not what I'm saying. You should stop. I acknowledge. If someone gives you an award, you don't have to throw it back in their face. I know what you're trying to do to me. Don't have to do that. Right? They may say you're the top salesman of the company. They'll give you an award at the end of the year. Your company will give you an award for being the top salesman of the company. Acknowledge that. But when they say you're the top salesman of the company, you know what they're saying next year as well? What should you do? Remain the top salesman of the company. That's what they're saying. That's what they're saying. They're encouraging you to keep on running. Tissue paper, don't forget. Because even before you joined the company, there was still a top performing salesman of the company. Even after you leave, the following year, they'll have another top salesman of the company. So it's not you they're acknowledging. Not you, your service. It's your service they're acknowledging, not you. They don't care about you. They don't give a rat's about you. All they care about is your service. Service to help them make more, earn more customers, earn more money, proliferate their business. What about service to oneself? Who cares? Who gives a damn about that? Go ask your boss, sir, when I'm dead, will I go to the four great hells? He said, what four great hells? What are you talking about? No, he says, Swaminatha told me that if I don't work on my own merits, when I die, I go to the four great hills. What's your boss going to say? What rubbish, man? Come to work tomorrow. You want a pay rise? I'll give you one. Be back on your seat, just go and do your work. Four great hells. They won't give, they don't care. And it's rightly so, because it's not his job to care about your salvation. He's there to do his job. He's the director of the company. You're the manager. His job is to make sure you manage the company. And that's fair enough. Fair dues. It's not his task to make sure that you work to your salvation. That's your task. Don't delegate that. Because no one is prepared to take that off of you. No one. So finally, am I suggesting that you must all put away your lay clothes and go into robes? Is that what I'm suggesting? No. For those of you who can, absolutely. If you can, do that. Otherwise, you're constantly being influenced by the people around you. Remember, you are the product of your environment. Although you think you have choice, your choices are all influenced by the indoctrinations that people put into your heads. Okay? So it's not like you can choose out of nothing. People put 2 or 3 choices in front of you and then you pick one. That's what choosing is. They put those choices in front of you. That's how you choose. You can't choose something you don't know. Yeah? So people decide what you know. That's what advertising does. Advertising is to ensure that you only know about me, about us and our products. So whenever you choose, you want to choose are products. And I make you think that you're choosing. You're not really choosing. I've already chosen for you. That's what happens. So I'm not suggesting that you must all give up your lay lives and come into robes. What I'm suggesting though is this. Wherever you are, whatever your circumstances are today, commit whatever time you have to this, your salvation. Because no one else is going to do that on your behalf. Whatever free spare time you have today, don't just keep frivolously throwing it away so that you keep on investing your time in these pursuits, buying more, spending more, earning more, building more. Don't do that. I'm not forbidding you from doing it. I'm just saying if you keep on doing that, it's time you'll be taken away from the true purpose of your existence. The true purpose of your coming into this world. That is this. I was once like that. I did a lot of time management. I studied the art of time management and the science of time management to the nth degree because I wanted to be very determined about how I spend my time. Because I wanted to become the top in everything I did. So I spent a lot of time fine-tuning myself and working myself cutting myself to the T and making sure that everything I did was perfect. I did a lot of that. But today I realized that all that effort put in was just futile because it was not going to lead me to what I really wanted to achieve in my life. Therefore, I speak to you today, ladies and gentlemen. Don't make the same mistakes I did. Don't get lost where I got lost. If you're already lost, from wherever you are, remember you can draw a straight line to your salvation. So in practical terms, save whatever time you have today and try and save as much more time as possible for your own salvation. What must you do in that time? You can listen to the sermons. You can repeat. You can contemplate. You can sit down and relax. You can ask yourself, what is this suffering all about? What is the sense of self that I experience? Sensuality that I experience, is that something that comes from the outside world? Is beauty in this? Or is beauty something I create in my own mind? You have learned now the doctrine. It's now time you apply the doctrine. You apply it in your own minds. This is homework. That I can't do for you. You have to do on your own. You have to admit, that I can't do for you. I wish I could. If I could, I would. But I can't. Your mind has to find its own salvation. A teacher can only show the path. You must walk it on your own. Please remember, you will all end up on a bed one day. And when you're on that bed, you will be at the mercy of the very people that treated you like tissue paper. Don't expect them to sacrifice their time to come and look after you. It may or may not happen. If you have taken the time and effort to instill values and virtues in your children, then perhaps they might come and look after you. Perhaps. But remember, you are only one person who fills their minds with stuff. They are surrounded by ignorant fools who keep on telling them that happiness is not in tending to their parents or anything like that. They have to go out partying, clubbing, going places, earning more money, setting up the business. That's what their friends keep on telling them. So, in the new generation, dear parents, come out of your bubbles, of these fantasy bubbles, expecting that your children will look after you. Don't rely on them. Teach them the value of looking after their parents, but don't expect that. Why? Not because you're bad. Because although you are one teacher to them, they're surrounded by their school friends. They're surrounded by their university friends. They're surrounded by the internet forums. They're surrounded by what they see on YouTube. They're surrounded by what they are fed by everyone that associates with them, constantly telling them that happiness is not by their parents' bedside. It's out here. So why would they want to come and spend time with you? They'll just feel like they're wasting their time by your side. And if you've already given them all the property that they need, if you've already given them their inheritance, In fact, it might actually be that the only way you can get them to be by your side is if you don't sign that last will until the last moment. Forgive me for saying this. Just don't sign the dotted line until the last moment. Then they might be there with you because they can get something out of you. Then you'll realize that they have also used you like tissue paper. I'm not suggesting your children are bad. Please don't think it that way. Remember, there is no one to be good or bad. These are just minds. Minds which are indoctrinated with the dhamma or no dhamma. That's it. There's no good or bad people. There are just minds. So the best thing you could do is don't be at the mercy of your children. Teach them the value of looking after you, yes, because they can get merits out of it. But don't be at their mercy. Don't be at the mercy of someone to look after you when you're old. I want you to be ready so that if you end up on a bed and all you can do is look up and stare at the ceiling, you can still be happy at heart. That's what I want for you. I want to help you get there. That's what the Mahasangha wants for you. So you don't feel destitute. You don't feel desperate, because I remember what those patients I used to look after, what they went through. They were not growing old here, they were growing old in some of the wealthiest countries in the world. And all they asked for in the later parts of their life was, can I have my children, please? Can I talk to my son, please? That's all they asked for. I don't want you to be like that. Because I want you to realize that happiness is not in your children. Happiness is not in the TV. Happiness is not in a piece of cake. It's not in a pudding. It's not anywhere out there. Once you find happiness within you, you will not look for it out there. And if you can get yourself to that point, ladies and gentlemen, you become independent. That's what I want for each and every one of you, to become independent by the day you become dependent. Today you are independent physically. Tomorrow you will become dependent physically. Today you are still dependent mentally. I'm trying to help you become independent mentally on the day you become dependent physically. Then it won't matter whether people are there to look after you or not. If they just leave you to rot in bed, so be it. Be prepared for that. If no one looks after you when you're older, so be it. If everyone at home goes out partying and they leave you at home and they're not interested in entertaining you, so be it. Just imagine the frustration. Remember, imagine you're at home, the trip switch has just gone off for some reason or the other. You can't get out of bed to go and switch the trip switch on so the fan's working, because everyone's gone out. And it's a hot day. Now imagine how you'll feel. The trip switch has gone off. Those days you could just get out of bed, go and trip it back on, and come back and sleep in bed. But now you can't. Now you start sweating all over. It all starts getting all groggy. And just imagine the frustration that you will experience at that point. You try ringing your children and they just put you on engage. They don't want to answer your call because they're with their friends. They don't want to be talking to mommy while they're with their friends. There'll come a point where you become a nuisance to people. Don't you understand that? You will become a nuisance to people. Then they will say, good riddance. And they'll be waiting for your departure. Because they'll have already used you. They have wiped their hands. Now you're just a dirty tissue paper. And then, in the trash can, good riddance. I can't stop that from happening. It'll probably happen to me also. I can't stop that from happening. But here's what we can work together to stop happening. You feeling frustrated when that happens, emotionally. You feeling a victim when that happens, emotionally. You crying out loud when that happens in your mind, emotionally. I want you to develop your emotional stamina. Let the body go to the dogs. Who cares? But mentally, you must be fit, strong, with an impeccable state of mind. That you can only do once you realize that happiness is within you. So if you are still looking for happiness in your TV, be warned, one day you're going to go blind. If you're still enjoying your life, enjoying your mind by listening to music, remember, one day the trip is going to go and the radio is going to go off. And you'll have to wait until they come back to turn it back on again. One day they will forget to wash you for weeks. You'll be in bed, all sweaty. You'll start puking at the smell of your own sweat. They'll forget to wash you. Be prepared for that day. Physically, I can't stop that from happening. That's your own karma. But mentally, I can stop you from suffering when that happens. So be prepared for cancer. Be prepared for neglect. Be prepared for old age. Be prepared for blindness. Be prepared for deafness. Be prepared for your children to completely ignore and neglect you and walk away. Be prepared. Who knows what you have done in the past? Who knows? Today you are good people, but who knows what you've done in the past? When those karmas come back to bite you on the back, there's no mercy then. So please be prepared. Happiness is within you. Use the dhamma to understand that. Right, let's call it a day. I think there's a bus leaving in what time? 12:15. Okay, so in about an hour's time, there's a bus departing towards the monastery. That will take you to Guru Hamro's sermon this afternoon from 2:30 to about 4:30. And I heard there were still few seats vacant. Four or five. Okay, so if there's anyone who didn't know about it but would still like to go, please let the organizers know. The bus still has 4 or 5 seats vacant. And also, I think, I hope you won't mind me saying this, if there's anyone here who might find it difficult to afford, this is not to offend or insult anyone, but it's not, I don't have to assume, I don't think I should assume that everyone is able to afford that, because it's a bit of a trip there. So if there's anyone here who finds it difficult to afford, whatever it is the price of the bus ticket, I don't know what it is because it wasn't organized through the monastery, but if there's anyone who finds it difficult to afford, then please let the organizers or one of our anagarikas know about it. We don't have to make it public, but we'll find a way to get you there. I'm sure there'll be someone who'll be more than happy to pay the price of your ticket to take you to Nibbāna. That people will do with all the joy in their hearts. If you want to get to Nibbāna, then they'll be happy to take you to the moon if you need to. Okay, so if there's anyone here for whom it's going to be too expensive or whatever, then please let one of our anagarikas know or one of the organizers know, and we can make arrangements. That will just be a personal arrangement, a private arrangement, no one else needs to know about it, but that option is also there. Okay? All right. Let's do the merit transfer and bring the sermon to a close. Let us all take a moment then to transfer all the merits that we have acquired today by making offerings to the infinite virtues of the Noble Triple Gem, delivering the Dhamma as well as making invitations to the Swamin Wahanse to deliver the sermon today, and creating a conducive environment for all to come along and practice the path. First and foremost, let us take a moment to transfer these merits to the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, upasakas and upasikas, who since time immemorial have protected and preserved the sublime teachings of the Buddha and passed it down through the generations of the noble lineage in the form of the Tripitaka, which is thankfully available to us today to study, understand and comprehend the Dhamma. Let us take a moment to transfer this message to the monks and nuns resident in your local temples and nunneries, who have always been by your side through thick and thin, come rain or shine, as well as the Mahanayakas and the Anunayakas of all of the chapters who have sacrificed and dedicated their lives to the noble path. Let us also transfer this message to my teacher, Guru Swami Nuhanse, as well as all the monks resident at the monastery and the Anagarikas and Anagarikas attached to the monastery. Let us also take a moment to transfer this message to those who make great efforts to disseminate the teachings of the Buddha, be that by translating these talks, sharing them out with others, or inviting others to join them. Let us also take a moment to transfer this message to our devotees and friends of the monastery, who for the sake of merits to help them attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna, continue to sustain the Mahasangha by providing alms, shelter, robes and medicines, as well as passing on their know-how and continue to extend their well-wishes. May they all rejoice in these merits, and by the power of these merits may they be healed of any physical and mental ailments and overcome any obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to our mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews and nieces, our friends, our acquaintances, our employers and our employees, our friends, our teachers, as well as anyone and everyone who've left no stone unturned to help us, support and assist us in any way, shape or form possible and available to them. May by the power of these merits they be healed of any physical and mental ailments in overcoming obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer this message to the Devas and Brahmas, spirits and demons, primarily the Sakadeva, as well as all the numerous gods and deities who have committed themselves to fulfill and preserve the Sambuddha Sasana. Let us transfer this message to our guardian deities who keep a watchful eye over us and keep us out of harm's way. May they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer this message to our ancestors, our forefathers, those who passed away in our names, our loved ones, reminding ourselves that it is in their blood, sweat and tears today we are able to enjoy the comforts of life as we do. Let us transfer the merits that we have acquired to all of them. Let us also transfer this merits to members of the armed forces as well as the police force who sacrificed their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation, as well as those who lost their lives in the wars, be their friend or foe, as well as natural disasters such as tsunamis and earthquakes, landslides, fires, floods, pandemics and so on, reminding ourselves that in this infinite long journey of samsara, they will all have been mothers and fathers to us, friends to us, and with an abundance of loving kindness and compassion towards all of them, with a sense of gratitude for all that they have done for us, let us transfer all these merits to all of them. May, by the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful planes, they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may by the power and blessings of all the merits we have acquired throughout the day, we will witness the advent of many hundreds of thousands of Arahants on this blessed land. And finally, may you and I and everyone who's helped make this program a success become a Rahatan Mahanse or another Theranin Mahanse in this very life itself and in the era of this Sambuddha Sasana itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem be with you all. The members of the Mahasangha will now transfer their blessings to you. Rajagiriya midetva dveshagiriya midetva mohagiriya midetva Nibbāna parama sukhayan Sukhita taratva Nibbāna parama sukhayan Sukhita taratva Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo Nibbāna parama sukhayan sukhitatara vidva. Nibbāna parama sukhayan sukhitatara vidva. Nibbāna parama sukhayan sukhitatara vidva. Rajagini niveva dveshagini niveva mohagini niveva nivan sapa labeva nivan sapa labeva nivan sapa labeva. තුන්රුවන්ගේ සුවිසි අනන්ත මහා ගුණ බෙලෙන් සියලු ලෝක සියලු සත්වයෝම නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුගතිතර වෙත්වා. සාදු සාදු සාදු.